Good morning, friends. Welcome. Another day, another Dharma. Nice to see you all. Priya's here with me again. Little spotlight on Priya. Hey! There you go. All right. So, wherever you are, however you are, welcome, welcome. Come, settle. Soften. Let yourself be here. Yeah. So, each morning this week, I've been just giving one or other Pali term and reflecting on it a little bit, just as a way in to meditation and as some principle which we might consider. And I thought today to just reflect a little on the word jhana. Jhana. If you're familiar with the tradition, then you're maybe familiar with jhana as what are called the 4 form jhanas and the 4 formless jhanas, which are different. The form jhanas are different, are kind of progressive meditative states of absorption, basically. So, and the word jhana etymologically mostly means, best way to translate it, can translate it as absorption, but I think of gatheredness. Jhana, if the mind is jhana, is gathered. Right? And that's what we're practicing in a way in meditation, that gatheredness. And just a little interesting run through the etymology. So Pali language, jhana, transliterated into English, Jhana, jhana. Sanskrit version, dhyana, Dhyana, dhyan. And that's still the word now in Hindi, modern language of North India, for meditation, dhyan. Dhyan karega. I'm going to do some meditation, dhyan, collectedness. So, dhyan and jhana, similar to each other. When Bodhidharma took his journey over the Himalayas, bringing Buddhist teachings and practices into China, the pronunciation of dhyana became chan. And maybe some of you are familiar with the Chan meditation traditions of Chinese Buddhism. Some of the early Zen traditions are known as Chan traditions, because Chan in Chinese then became rendered as Zen in Chinese, in Japanese. So all of those words, and some of you, if you're familiar with the traditions, particularly both the Theravada, Jhana, and the Mahayana, Chan, Zen, maybe you're familiar with those different words. And it's just, I think, firstly, just interesting to recognize the common etymology. Dhyana, jhana, chan, zen. All the same word, basically. And all basically just meaning meditation, and specifically meaning this process of gathering our attention. So that's it. That's the word of the morning. And I just thought we then might just reflect a little bit on this quality of gathering. Because when we think about gathering our attention, and particularly if we're familiar with jhana in Pali and the 4 form jhanas, right, first, second, third, fourth, the formless jhanas are a little different, because even though they can be meditative states, they're equally kind of qualities of experience that can be there outside of meditation. If you're familiar, they're the jhana of infinite space. Right? Maybe you've tasted that in meditation, just a sense of that, oh, consciousness is vast, is infinitely spacious. But equally, one can have that contemplation or that the flavor of that in one's experience outside of meditation. Just feeling, even though conventionally I say I'm walking around in a body and in a world, but the feeling is actually my life is happening within the infinite space of consciousness, the actual container for everything, right? All my seeing, all my thinking, all my moving, all my experiencing. Where is it happening? Right here, like we were exploring earlier in the week. And what is right here? Oh, it's the open space of consciousness. And then, so the jhana of infinite space, and then the jhana of infinite consciousness. The sense that this infinite space is alive, it's awake, right? Like we were exploring earlier, also on Tuesday, I think. We talked about turiya, that single taste, right? So this, what is consciousness like? Oh, it's vast, infinitely vast. And this vastness, then we notice, is awake. Awakeness is everywhere. We might say reality is made of awakeness. And that truth, that reality is made of awakeness, that stands out then in the jhana of infinite consciousness. And then that tends to turn into the jhana of infinite nothingness, right? That sense of all this space, it's in a very profound way, it's empty. It has a kind of a gone quality, a sort of deep, which initially can seem a little nihilistic or fearful or like a sense of annihilation. But when we open into it, we actually find, oh, actually everything has the characteristic fundamentally of a kind of profound peace. Everything is at rest. The nature of everything is to dissolve into this sort of infinite, vast peace. And then one step further into that becomes the jhana of neither perception nor non-perception. It's difficult to describe, but there's really that sense of one can find in that particular meditative state, one can find no location for consciousness. One can't say how experience is arising. One certainly can't say it's my experience, right? It doesn't really, it's not really, it doesn't seem to be in that state happening to this mind. And yet it's not anywhere else, right? It's not here. And so that neither landing in a sense of that there is a perception or that there is no perception. And that belongs a little to the word we were talking about majjhima yesterday, the middle way, avoiding the extremes of this and that, of here and there, of self and other, of right and wrong, of, in this case, perception or non-perception. So maybe some of those flavors of experience or flavors of understanding are familiar to you. If they're not, doesn't matter. Those are the formless jhanas. And then the form jhanas, first, second, third, fourth, are just progressive states of kind of meditative absorption, like I said just now, which mostly depend either on somebody having a particular natural facility for that kind of absorption, or they tend to arrive through specific jhana practice, sometimes called concentration practice. I don't like the word concentration. I think gatheredness is much better. And that tends to happen. They sort of require a certain sort of stillness and steadiness. And for most people tend to arise only in retreat. Although once they've been tasted and experimented with retreat, once one becomes familiar with those, one can become quite proficient at going quite easily into jhana states. They're characterized mostly by just a feeling of lightness, ease, relaxation, brightness, well-being. The first one is bliss. Second one is contentment. Third one is peace. Fourth one is sort of beyond peace, equanimity, I might say. So anyway, that's just some mapping from the tradition. This morning, we just consider this sense of gatheredness. And as you're listening to me now, we'll start meditation in a moment, just feel the way you can, your attention, wherever it is, you can gather it, not by trying to force it, not by trying to contain it, but rather by, it's like you invite your attention. Hey, it's okay to be here. It's like you can feel the way your attention has been going here and there, and then it's like allowed to gather and settle. It's a great relief to live in a condition of gatheredness. Right? So we formally practice that gatheredness in meditation, encouraging our attention to gather, right, and to settle, to soften, to stay, to seep into the experience of being here. And then we also get to taste a quality of gatheredness as we go about our day. We just know that we're here, that mind and body are lined up, rather than body being in one place and mind bouncing around in a million other places. So two things just to not misunderstand about that gatheredness. Gatheredness of mind doesn't mean that no thoughts arise. It doesn't mean that one's perfectly gathered and one's attention never strays. That flavor can happen within the jhana states, but don't set that up as a condition. No, you can continue to practice a sense of gathering and settling, gathering and settling your attention, even while the usual thought activity happens. Right? And then you find that the thought activity is happening sort of within this gatheredness, instead of just taking you away from this gatheredness. Right? And then the second thing is when it does take you away, not to see that as some failure. Oh no, and now I've got to begin again, as if it's some long process of gathering my attention again. It's not a long process. It's a process of one mind moment. Just here. And then even if you notice you've been gone for 5, 10, 20 minutes, it doesn't matter. In the moment you notice you've been gone, don't worry about where you were gone, how long you were gone, why you were gone, right? Just be interested in, oh, now I don't need to be gone anymore. Here. So it's just like gathering and settling here. This is the heart and the ground of meditation. So please, take your seat as we sit here together. Set up your posture. Sit in a way that's steady and grounded, that's upright and bright. In a way that's open and receptive. In a way that's relaxed and easeful. Sense into the field of your attention, how However wide that field seems, however diffuse, however bright or dull, however steady or shaky. See the whole sense of your attention and wherever it is. And inviting your attention to gather and settle. To be here. Here in your breathing body. Here in the aliveness and immediacy of experience. Right here. gathering and settling, relaxing and brightening your attention. Letting yourself be right here. whatever's happening, wherever your attention goes, whatever ideas and images being produced by your mind activity. Just gathering and settling your attention, getting a feel for an attention that's gathered, that can settle and soften and seep into the feel of being here. gathering your attention all of your mind here, all of your experience here, united field where body, mind and world all arise and pass together. Ekagata, one spot. Jhana, gathered. Attention gathers and settles not through force and effort, but through relaxing, settling, allowing. In this way we find out that our attention actually most wants to be right here, but our attention longs to settle and soften and be at peace. May we all be awake where we are. May body and mind and world all be met right here. May we know the clarity and peace of a gathered mind. All right. So that was meditation. If you were here yesterday, you remember that I had to leave in a little bit of a hurry ahead of time, just because of demands here and delivery that came that I had to receive. So normally I'm here till the top of the hour today to answer questions, maybe new ones, maybe ones that you asked yesterday and then I didn't have time to answer. You can raise your hand or you can put a question in the chat. Just a reminder that all this is freely offered and that Sangha Live totally depends on your support. So if you benefit from being here and you appreciate that and you'd like others to be able to benefit and for everyone to continue to benefit so that we can keep on doing this, the only way that can happen is with your support. So please feel free. www.sangha.live/donate or just sangha.live/donate. And I'm very grateful personally. I benefit as the teacher this week. Sangha Live receives your support, and then everybody who comes here, almost every day of every month can also benefit. So that quality of goodness, it's kalyana. That was Monday's word, to offer in that way. Yeah. All right, let's have a look at questions. Andrea asks, can you recommend a text about the jhanas, generally Jhanas, jhanas? Shaila Catherine, who teaches here at Sangha Live sometimes, has written a book called Focused and Fearless, which is all about jhana practice. And Lee Bracington has also written a book of which I cannot remember the title, but he's written a lot on the jhanas. The three people who I would say the contemporary teachers who've written the most about jhana and explore it the most are Lee Bracington, Shaila Catherine, and Rob Burbeyer. I also have a course. If you look at my website, martinaylward.com, I have a course on the Anapanasati Sutta, which is like a 5-day sort of intensive practice. It's good for doing if you're doing like a solo retreat, and it goes through the Anapanasati Sutta and through Anapanasati practice, which is all the subtleties of working with the breath, and it goes into the jhanas as part of that. Yeah. Okay. And then, I wonder if you can delete things here. I thought I saw something, but then disappeared. I guess you can delete comments, can you? Clive asks from yesterday, yes, you may be getting a little caught up, but some teachers talk of the 3 marks of existence. Yes, anicca, dukkha, anatta. Are you saying we let go of anatta, which I understand to mean not self? I mean, I'm suggesting, like the Buddha was suggesting, you let go completely, right? So it doesn't mean that we ignore those teachings. No, they're pointing us how to let go. Mostly what we need to let go of is not self. Mostly what we need to let go of is self, right? Letting go of a belief in self, of clinging to self, of getting defensive around self, of being demanding for the self. But in the process, so most of the time, most of the work for most of the people is mostly to do with recognizing the tendency to get tight around a sense of self and softening that, letting go. But what we find in the process that is it can swing to the opposite and have some rigid ideas of there is no self. And that equally needs to be softened. There is no self is just as much a rigid position as there is a self. But mostly we get fixed on a sense of self. So the Buddha points a lot to letting go of self, but he doesn't then go to the other extreme of saying there is no self. In fact, he refused to get into that. When somebody asked him point blank, for God's sake, man, is there a self or isn't there? He stayed quiet because, you don't want to go from one extreme of reifying something's existence to the other extreme of negating something's existence. You can do it. It doesn't have to be a self. You can do that with anything. This, right? Does this stick exist or not? First thing, of course it does. There it is. Of course it does. Right? That's the usual way of the world, clinging to a sense of existence. But if you say, yes, it is, this is a thing, it's real, you sort of lose the whole of the rest of the universe. The tree that grew it, there's leather on this. This leather came from an animal, right? There's sunlight. And it's like the deeper you look, you find this doesn't exist independently from every single other condition in the universe. It's part of the co-arising of everything. So to say it exists as if it exists by itself, on its own, independently, it has to give it, we don't philosophically do that, but experientially we sort of give things inherent existence. It's real. And then you lose everything else. But so that's what the clinging to existence is, right? Making something real in a way that's independent or inherent. No, it's changing. It belongs to all the conditions that have given rise to it. It even belongs to the space around it. If there wasn't space around this, we couldn't identify it, right? So its existence isn't independent from everything else. But similarly, if we then say, oh no, it doesn't exist, then hold on. If you say it does exist, you lose the rest of the universe. But if you say it doesn't exist, then you lose the stick. So we navigate between these extremes, right? Anatta, essencelessness. We're seeing the non-inherent existence, but we're not denying anything, right? We're navigating freely between affirming and negating. I hope that's clear. If it's not, we can leave it aside. Kaz says, I'm curious about the source of jhana practice. Did it come from the historical Buddha or from earlier teachings or from the monastic tradition? It predates Buddha. The Buddha learned jhana practice from his two teachers, Ramaputta and Alayakalama. So he documents that when he talks about his own practice. He talks about the two teachers that he spent time with. And so that was a pre-existing kind of yogic practice, jhanas. Yeah. And what he found was that he got very proficient with the jhanas. So he learned a lot about meditative abiding, meditative states, but it wasn't integrated. Then he'd come out and he's like, oh, back to the world, back to being a self in a world, etc. And hence the shift, right, to insight practice. So that sense of abiding in a way that's gathered, right? It's gathered and settled and relaxed, which we were emphasizing today, but also which is bright and awake and crucially curious. What is this? What is this? What is this? Yeah. Okay. And then Lin says, is gatheredness body and mind being in the same place? Basically, yes. Yes. I sometimes heard people speak about jhanas and it sounded like it was something very special and very difficult to attain. But the way you describe it, it sounds like not so special or otherworldly. Is experiencing deep bliss and peace, for example, a jhana? So yes, I agree. So yes, gatheredness is that feeling easy to recognize. Oh, here, right? Not dispersed, here. The specific jhanas, first, second, third, fourth, are quite refined. But, you know, if you meditate a lot, Lean, you're a regular and committed practitioner, right? And you know something about a sense of deep bliss and peace. Yeah, the main hallmark of the first jhana is bliss, right? Piti is the Pali word. Rapture. That sense of body just feels light and open and fluid. And it's like, oh my God, it's just so good to be here, to have a attention that's gathered and not dispersed, to have a nervous system that's relaxed instead of agitated. Bliss. And then that cools out, second jhana, and stays with that, and stays with just the pleasantness of the bliss, but the kind of the euphoria of the bliss cools out, and there's more like, oh, like just deeper, stiller, quieter kind of happiness, contentment. Oh, just very sort of deep, cool current of gladness, glad to be here. So, you know, we may well have had tastes of those, and they may, for different people, may or may not be so stabilized. But I agree. I think the jhanas are often spoken about in a way that makes them seem very, very esoteric and very, what do you say, otherworldly and far away, which is not so helpful. Yeah. 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 And then I would make the difference between jhanic factors, particularly with the formless jhanas, infinite space, infinite consciousness, etc. Sometimes the sense of those qualities, the understanding, oh yeah, consciousness is infinitely spacious, can be there, and we can be sort of living in that recognition without it being a particularly deep meditative state. Right. Yeah. Okay. If you're going to write questions, please write question before your question so that I know that it's a question. Frederick says, in order to help Sangha Life continue and overcome their debt, I think that means rather than depth. We don't need to overcome the depth, but we do need to overcome the debt. Perhaps we can sell some things we do not need anymore. Yeah. Hey, if anybody feels like they've got some good initiative, they want to raise money to support Sangha Life, please feel free. And you could discuss that in the circles, right, in the community circle that's there, where there's all these forums for connecting with one another and sharing resources and discussion in various ways. Yeah. Thank you, Frederic. Noemi says, I've been aware for several months that I have constant and persistent tension in the jaws. I try to welcome it and be curious, to stay with the feeling without trying to release or get rid of. I'm tired and discouraged of this resistance. Do you have any advice for dealing with it? Gentleness, 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 Noemi. The tension, there's a few things. One, this might be a little hard to hear, but bear with me. One, you need to investigate and drop the idea that it is constant. Nothing is constant. There's nothing in the world that is constant. There's certainly nothing in human experience that's constant. And when we infer constancy, people will often say, I've got a constant pain in my shoulder. I've got a constant sense that this is happening. I constantly feel like, and I always think, whoa, no way. Nothing is constant. So it's important, when we have the sense that something is constant, it makes it feel very solid and unworkable and intractable. Right? So just to investigate, constant? Really? Constant? 24 hours a day, every moment, that's in your awareness, constantly. You infer the constancy. You say, well, even when I'm not aware of it, it's still tense. But if you're not aware of it, it's not a constant experience. So notice the times of presence and the times of absence. And that helps to break up the sense of solidity. Right? And then the jaw is one of the places where we tend to hold tension. For some of us, we might hold it here. For some of us, it's more in our shoulders, others in the back. And for some of us, jaw, one of the classic places. And when you really become aware of that, oh, you're becoming aware probably not just of the tension in the moment, but you're feeling actually the accumulated tension of all the years that you've done that. And you probably had good reason to feel tense in your jaw for some time. So by all means, when you feel it, of course, if you can relax your jaw a little bit, do so. But be gentle. Like, see if you can relax it like, oh, rather than, oh, I've got to relax my jaw. You know, because otherwise we inject a sense of tension even into the relaxation. And the fact is, if it's been an ongoing pattern to hold tension in your jaw, even if you relax it in the moment, you'll start to feel the kind of the heat and the tension patterning of all the history. And so it takes some time to soften, and you'll need to soften again and again and again and again and again. So the more gracious you can be with just softening again and again and again, right? Being gracious with the process and gentle with the process is really, really important and helpful. And if you get frustrated and tense and impatient with the process, well, frustration and impatience, you know, that they create tension. So it's understandable to feel like that, because those are the feelings that are very much associated with the tension. So that's why just coming back to being gentle, being forgiving of yourself for having gotten tense there again. Right? Very important. All right. I see that a couple of people have raised hands, but we're at the top of the hour. So please just raise them tomorrow. Come back tomorrow. And somebody asked me on Instagram this week if I would look at the word metta tomorrow. And the person said, oh, maybe it's too simple a word. But, you know, I think we can draw some juice out of the word metta. So that'll be the word of the day. I'm giving you advance warning. And if you generally, I'm also going to do a series of question and answers on Instagram today. So I'm starting to do that weekly. You can find me at Martin Aylward on Instagram, and I'll put up a little video at some point today just inviting questions, and they can really be about like anything. And then I'll make a series of little video responses on Instagram, which I quite enjoyed doing last week, and people seemed appreciative of that. So that's my new little project, playing with Instagram. All right. Thank you, friends. See if you can take collectedness into your day. See if every moment you can just reset. Not like, oh, yeah, I've got to be collected, but just simple, simple, simple. Like, just allowing just a little bit of settling. Yes. Thank you. See you tomorrow.